singer-songwriters. Welcome to the Music Festivals podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals, festival venues, and campgrounds before you go. I'm your host, Neighbor Nate, and I'm glad you're in the neighborhood. Welcome back, neighbors, to episode number 35 of the Music Festivals podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals, festival venues, and campgrounds before you go. And I am your host, Neighbor Nate, and I am super excited today that our guest is no stranger to this show or music festivals, and especially my very favorite music festival, Acoustic Hookah's Hookahville. And he'll be playing both a solo set as well as with the 2.0 era of acoustic hookah. If you're in the family, you know what that means. And this is coming up at the Hookahville 60 Festival that's going to take place at Roost on the River Music Center in Newark, Ohio from June 5th through the 7th. His stories have been such a big part of my life and my personal joy for over 2 decades now. So I'm delighted to welcome to the show my friend, Mr. Ed McGee. How you doing, Ed?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're back, and I do want to give you a hat tip. I think you were guest number 2 on this podcast back when I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Arguably, I still have no idea what the hell I'm doing. But I appreciate you jumping in and kind of giving me that first vote of confidence way back when.
I kind of can't believe that. I didn't realize I was guest number 2, and I thought it was incredibly professional. So I'm surprised to hear that. I'm always scrambling to get my shit together over here with the technology, and I thought you had it. You were kicking ass with it. So that's great. Good on you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It's been a wild ride and it's been a lot of fun. And if it accomplishes anything, it gets me a whole bunch of music festivals. So I'll take that. But yeah, the last time you were here, we were prepping up for OJ's gig out at the Lazy Jam Music Festival in Hartsville, Indiana, and you were playing that with One Under. And so I got some video of that. Unfortunately, there was some stuff that happened that I lost a lot of the footage through a break-in. But I would like to get your reaction, man. Like, how did that show go for you guys?
It was that was an incredible ride. There's a fair amount of behind the scenes stuff that happened leading up to that, which I can get to. But the ultimately, I thought it was just a kick-ass time. I thought we played well, and crowd was great, and the weather was great. OJ and his crew are great. The other bands were great. It's just, I said it beforehand, and I wasn't. You get there and you realize that even though I thought I was pimping it out too hard, I think I undersold it. It's just an incredible festival, and yeah, we had a blast. But I can tell you some stuff that led up to it if you want to hear it.
Yeah. Tell me about it. That's it's fascinating.
So we One Under doesn't play together that often, and we love getting together when we do get to. So for months we had been preparing and talking about the song list and what new stuff we wanted to try and this and that. All 5 of us chiming in, and then we're getting closer and closer to the day, and I believe it. So I think it was Thursday. We were scheduled to meet together in this VRBO that I rented us to stay in near the venue. So that was Thursday. 3 days before that, we get a text from Josh Heber, the drummer, saying he's having some serious health issues with his some kind of crazy ear infection, and nothing was working, and it was getting worse. He actually spent a few nights, maybe 4 nights in the hospital. They did like CAT scans and stuff, and it was freaking us all out. We were like, what's wrong with you? And ultimately, like on Wednesday, he was like, I'm really sorry, guys. I was expecting to rebound from this and pull through, but I can't. So I think maybe that was Tuesday. So we had 2 days to figure out what to do. And, it was so late in the game that it was like the show must go on. And we scrambled and called a bunch of drummers, and no one was really available. And then, Tyler Austin, who plays keyboards with us, is actually a drummer first and foremost. He just plays keys with us. And we kind of knew he was sort of an option, but we felt bad because he'd been working really hard on the keys,
Right.
all the keys parts, which are not easy to those songs. But ultimately we were like, all right, Tyler, like we've tried every avenue. We only have 48 hours. And he just kind of was like, yep, I get it. And he even though he had been working really hard, I think he like left work and went home and just worked on all the songs all over again from the drums perspective. And it was just incredible. And he showed up on that Thursday, and we had like an 11-hour rehearsal, partly because we were just having so much fun, but also we were just really he really wanted to nail down the songs and hadn't had that much time. But we were from the first song that he played with us in our rehearsal space at that VRBO, we all just looked at each other, like, oh my God, because he's a badass. And
Yeah,
so it went from like we were all freaking out, like, how's this going to work, to just overjoyed, like super psyched. This is going to rock in like one song. And
that's amazing.
and then we just, drank beer and rehearsed and had a great barbecue, which Lee helped us cook. She was manning the grill and womaning
That's
the grill.
awesome.
So yeah, it was a wonderful day at this really cool VRBO about 10 minutes from the venue that I found. And yeah, it was great.
I mean, it's that A, I hope that and who was the original drummer's name? I hope he was all right? Like, and
Yeah,
he got through
yeah, I
everything.
should I have to find you again. I don't know what just there we are. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Some crap just popped up. Um the original drummer Josh Heber, yeah, he's okay. He did have a bad experience with the hospital health care in his little, I think he lives in Kentucky now, right across the river from Cincinnati, and he doesn't have good things to say about his health care there. And I think he may have some permanent hearing damage now in one ear as a result of some
Oh,
of that,
man.
and he's not happy about that. But he's been playing, and he played with us again on the New Year's run,
Yeah.
and so he seems to be doing good.
I mean, I have to imagine though too, you guys getting together, you probably don't see each other that much. It had to be a lot of fun, right? Just to get back together with the old gang and connect on music and play stuff you haven't played in a long time. Out of that, you said the 11-hour rehearsal and the barbecue. Were there any like specific moments where you were just like, man, this feels great, right? Like,
All
what
the
was that like
time,
for you? Yeah.
all the time. I mean, like I said, from the first song, just kind of seeing, because we never really played these songs with Tyler on drums. So there was the first immediate just surprise and shock and awe of like, wow, he's really good. This isn't just like having someone cover the drums. He's bringing a whole new, his own thing. Like, he's like a rock drummer, but he knows all the intricacies. So there was that first moment of just this is awesome with Tyler on kit. Um, and then every song after that, it's just like seeing an old friend, those songs we don't get to play ever
Yeah.
with other bands or anything. So every single song is like, oh, you almost forget certain things you like about them. And so just the rehearsing was just such a blast. It's almost like
Yeah.
we had to keep reminding ourselves to save some for the show, because you can almost, have too much fun in the
Right.
rehearsal with those guys and that stuff. And then in between the songs, all the jocularity and of course the afterwards, just hanging out, drinking bourbon and shooting the shit like it was old times. It's just wonderful. I love those guys, Pat and Cello, and the new guys, Tyler and Josh. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and hats off to OJ and the whole crew that puts on Lazy Jam because it really is a super unique, small, intimate, and I always say it feels like all of the benefits of a music festival with the light and the sound and everything else, but it's a backyard camp out with your best friends, right?
Yeah,
Like, and it
for sure.
really, it's very unique.
Yeah.
And then you guys did the New Year's run, and I think after that you left. You had another gig the following night after Lazy Jam. Was that in Columbus?
Yeah, we played in Columbus the next night. Yep.
Yeah.
So
So, well,
that was another
I
good
hope
one.
that we see some more one under, down the road when you guys can get together. I imagine it's tough being all spread out, but
Mhm.
always a great show. Always great to see you guys play.
Yeah, it's fun.
So you guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about too. The last single that I saw came out in 23, and that was Last Good Knife. Tell me a little bit about how that came about. It's a super interesting song. But how did that come about?
Okay, well, toward the end of the quarantine, excuse me, the quarantine section period of the good old 2020 there, once people started going out a little bit, venturing out of their houses in the fall of 2020, a friend of mine, Mason, who I grew up with here, in New Hampshire and Vermont. He's from Vermont. I was from New Hampshire. But we went to the same high school and middle school. Uh, he he contacted me. He lives nearby and he or has a place nearby. And he said, am I stir crazy and wanting to get out of the house and do something? And I said, absolutely. And so he had been a part of a team that produces indie movies and so forth. Um, and he asked if I'd come do the audio, holding the boom mic for the actors and so forth. And I said, sure. And they were shooting it in a nearby town in Vermont. And then like a couple days in, he's like, by the way, you have a small part in the movie now. And I was
Nice.
like, okay.
Nice.
So I played this aging, kind of half drunk detective who just hates life. And he has the young detective with him who's like really eager, and he's the old soured guy. So that was fun. I had a few lines. Um,
Yeah, that's cool.
and then and the movie was called The Aurora Problem. But once it was kind of finished, somebody in charge decided to, or whoever they were selling it to, decided they wanted to change the name to something catchier. So they called it My Best Friend's Dead. And
That's a kind of an interesting title, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you know the story, it makes sense. But I said to Mason one day, I'm like, oh, I wish I'd known that before. I could have written a song like because to me that sounded like a Ramones, song title, like
Yeah.
My Best Friend's Dead.
Right.
So I was like, I could have written some Ramones-esque song called My Best Friend's Dead that they could play in the credits of the movie. And he's like, well, might not be too late. And he called Bruce like right then and there, and the director Bruce Wemple, and said, do you want a song for Ed to write? And he said, can he have it to me by Friday? And it was Tuesday. So I was
Jeez.
like, okay. So I cranked this song out in like 2 days and recorded it and everything, sent it off, and he used it. And he liked it. So they invited me back for the next movie, which was called The Tomorrow Job. And he had me write about 4 songs. And when I say songs, My Best Friend's Dead was 2 minutes. And some of the songs that I wrote for the Tomorrow Job were about anywhere from 45 seconds to 2 minutes.
Okay.
And they would just use them for little scenes. So he had me do 4 for that, which was really fun. Like he'd give me the scene and I'd be like, looking at the actual scene and coming up with the music as I looked at it. In some cases, they had to be timed to the same timing as whatever a character was dancing to. That was like some Stones tune that they couldn't afford to use or whatever.
Right.
Um, so that was just a really fun challenge. And then for the movie he did after that, called Island Escape. Um, I once again I got a little cameo, which was really fun. I got to punch out the lead character in a bar scene, which was
Nice.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And then he asked me to write a couple songs. He asked one for the bar scene, the bar fight scene. He wanted it to sound like Creedence Clearwater Revival. So I just got to, it's really fun writing these songs because I just step out of the normal Ed world and just adopt, oh, I'm the Ramones or Green Day or CCR today, and it's like putting on a costume.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that song for the bar fight was called Grand Manan, which is the name of an island in the movie. And then later they said write another song, and just go bonkers, and just go full on, go past My Best Friend's Dead, hard rock or whatever. And they didn't give me a scene to look at. They didn't tell me how they were going to use it. So I had been helping do audio for that movie as well. And I remember being in this house in upstate New York, where they were filming some scenes, and we went outside to film this like fight scene where these commando guys, like ex-military crazy guys, they have a knife fight or something in the woods, and they have all these fake prop knives they're using, and they kept breaking them as they were fighting. And the direct Bruce kept saying, it doesn't matter, you can't really see it, don't worry about it, just use the fake broken knife. And then there was like one scene where he said, all right, this is the last good knife, and we have to see it for this scene. So I'm not telling you to screw up your acting, don't impinge upon natural abilities, but like don't break the knife, it's the last good knife. And so that, I don't know, for some reason that stuck in my head.
Right.
And when they told me to write some bonkers song, I just channeled this one actor who was like one of the last, not to spoiler alert, but he's one of the last guys that's alive on the island, and he's fighting off these mutants that are there. And so I just started writing slipping down the bank with my last good knife, because there was one scene where he was supposed to run through the woods and he kind of wiped out down a bank. So I was like, so that just led to that. And then I just tried to make it hard rock, and using the whammy bar on the guitar a lot, and kind of channeling Van Halen and whatever else I could think of. So
I mean,
that's that's how that came about.
that's super interesting, and it is interesting to me too just to hear about your creative process. And I imagine it has to change, like when you're writing something like, Alexander 2 versus something for a film where you've got certain parameters. Like, do you think about it differently? Like, it seems like you almost, you pull stuff from like, oh, I saw that, and then does that just become a mental note where I'm going to include that in the song? Like, talk to a little bit about how the creative process changes.
Yeah, I kind of, I've always kind of said I'm like a inspiration slut. I take it wherever I can get it, and so I get weird ideas all the time. I mean, it's obvious examples go back to like a song like "Surround," which is just about the day when you pulled the plastic off your windows in the spring. So just weird things will strike me as, in that case, I found that there was a deeper significance than just, oh, there's nice to have fresh air. Um, and so things kind of jump out to me in my weird mind. But I, yeah, so on a daily basis, I'm getting these weird ideas, and some of them I'll jot down in my phone. I have a notes section where I keep ideas like that. I have tons of them. And then something will remind me of them, and I'll go back and develop them. Um, and Yeah, so that's kind of just an ongoing thing. It's I can't even really avoid it. It's just that's how my brain works and how my life works. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's different with these movies because and in some ways it's kind of easier because I've always been someone who really cares about lyrics, and um, for the most part. I mean, I don't mind an occasional just party song or something kind of silly or whatever, but for the most part, I like to like have some weight, some significance, something to sink your teeth into and feel some feeling of meaning that goes along with the feeling of the music. Uh, and so I spent a lot of time like questioning myself, questioning what am I talking about? Why am I talking about? What's the point in saying this right now to these people that are listening? And it's a pretty involved and intense process. And I find myself often not finishing songs if I can't answer those questions well. Um, and yet, when you're writing a song for a movie, it's like all the material's there.
Yeah.
Um, Also, they don't really care that much. It's like background sound for an action scene or something. No one's really listening to the words. So it takes a little pressure off.
Yeah.
I do like still to have some cool lyrics there for if anyone were listening to a soundtrack down the road, so I still employ whatever skills I have in writing because I enjoy doing it anyway, and I'm putting my name on it. But it's a little easier because all the storylines there, everything that has happened there, and I can just kind of take my own view of what's going on in the movie and put it into a 2 minute song or whatever. In the case of Grand Manan, the song that they did use during the fight scene, um, I actually talked to the guy who was the lead role, the guy that was acting in the lead part, and said they asked me to write this song, and I kind of want to base it around your character. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you see the background of your character, and what are his feelings like in the course of this movie? And then I just tried to incorporate in that in the lyrics. This is a guy who like his memory's messed up because of some shit the government did to him, and he's meeting this woman that he used to be in love with, and he doesn't know that. He doesn't remember that, and
Wow.
yet he has a spark with her because it's still there, and she knows that he doesn't remember. She knows the government did this. So there's this weird interplay there in the sadness, and she's kind of hoping he'll come back around and they can get back together. Meanwhile, he's just like ex-military doing this job for cash because he needs the money. So it's like a desperate kind of sad story. And so I just try to stick that in a CCR sounding song.
Yeah.
And that's easier than me sitting here going like, I think I'm going to write a song about a ex-military guy who can't remember his wife. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I come
Yeah.
up with some bizarre ideas, but it's nice when they're just delivered to you and it's like, here, write about this, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I can see how that would take some pressure off and like just let
mhm.
you just create it on one front instead of having to come up with the story as well, right?
Yep.
Like that's really cool. And for everybody who's watching, definitely going to be links in the description on YouTube, show notes for these films and the movies and the songs for at least the ones I could find. Uh, but yeah, it's really cool to hear about Ed McGee, the film music producer, the film musician. That's really neat. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Hookahville. Everybody's super excited, I think, to for this Hookahville 60 to see all the eras of the band. And I know that everybody's very excited when you get to come back and not only do your solo set, but also, play with the guys and whatnot. For me, that was the era that I came into hookah, right? When you started, that was really like my first exposure to hookah. So that era will always hold a place in my heart. But your first Hookahville was 94, is that correct? And
My
that was
first playing in the
playing at
band
Hookahville, yeah, was or
was
not playing in the
97.
band, but playing. Did you play at 94 like solo,
Oh,
or was
yeah,
that
yeah. Like the first Hookahville I opened, yeah.
okay? So yeah, how did that come about? Because I believe I think that was the first one, if I'm right. And again, all the memories are blurry. I kind of came in, a couple years into it. But how'd you find your way to that first festival?
Well, I had been friends with those guys already. They I it's hard to know where to start in a question like that. I'd been playing in between sets of the band when they got their start at the Southburg and Columbus, so I knew all the guys even before the band began. Um, and then by the time 94 rolled around, I'd already been out to that property before for some parties and stuff. Um, and then I heard about this thing they were throwing, and I was planning on going anyway, but I got a call from Jeff Spencer. I was going to mention him later, by the way. Cheers to may he rest in peace, and to good friends
Yeah,
past. Good guy. He was managing the band, and he called me one day and said, "Would you be willing to open for the band?" And I was like, "Sure, of course I would." And he said, yeah, there's no opening bands, but they just want to have something going on before they start, before it gets dark. And so I asked my friend Bill Creedon, who's one of my best friends and plays drums, if he wanted to come up and like play percussion.
yeah,
And so we rolled up, and that's how that all happened.
that's cool. Do you remember what you played? Do you remember, what songs were in play? What Ed songs were in play at that point?
Well, in 94, I did have like Lady Vanilla and Through Hiker and Springtime Again. Probably played all of those, probably played T Rose.
Yeah,
Um, and then I had a bunch of songs that I used to play at acoustic things back then that ended up some of them ended up on the my second solo album, The Life in Their Bones, like Madeline. I may have, I don't know if I played it or not, but those songs like that, or Secret Teller.
yeah,
I know there was one, uh, this epic story. I say epic tongue in cheek, but um, Heffe specifically requested that I sing or tell this story. I don't even know. I think I might have labeled it as the steamboat story or something like that. Because I went out to Colorado in 93 or something when they were
yeah.
out there, and traveled around with them and opened and played in between sets at a few places, and just made up a story on the spot one night, that was turned out to be pretty funny. Everybody was laughing while when I was telling the story. And so Heffe wanted me to recreate that. So I remember I did that, and I think it was pretty stupid the second time. I don't think it played as well at Hookahville as it did out at the bar in Colorado. But yeah, so that's all I can really remember from that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I never actually had the chance to meet Hefei in person. but I heard about him, and you
Mhm.
do hear about, the different people that have been around hookah for a while. And this Hookahville is, I think, dedicated in his memory, if I'm correct on that. Um, Tell me about Heffe. Like, what do you remember about Heffe?
Um, he was an intense dude. He's from New York City somewhere. Can't remember which borough or whatever, but he's got that kind of New York kind of like I remember when they first called me to audition for the band in '96, and I was out at their property for a rehearsal, or I don't know what it was, but I was out there. And no, actually, I think it was just a party. And I was out there, and he took me into his office or whatever. And he starts going like, "So what's your job been? Are you dating anybody? How long you been dating?" It was like a job interview, you're like, I'm like, wow, this is like, I've known him for a while already from just being around the scene, but now he's asking me all these questions. And he's just like, "I just want to see if you're stable." We were dealing with a guy that wasn't very stable. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of funny. But he had a good sense of humor. He always seemed to like my lyrics, which made me feel good. I sometimes wonder if that was just a tactical, strategic move to keep telling me he liked my lyrics because he knew that that would make me happy and do whatever he said, or if it was true. But he mentioned specific songs like The Giant and stuff, so I think he liked the lyrics, and that made me happy. And one of my favorite memories of Jeff was that one, after Hookahville shows were over, when I was in the band, some of those really big ones where we were way up on a pretty tall stage, and then you got like a barrier, and between the stage and the barrier, there's like photographers and security and stuff. And I would often go off stage after the final encores and walk around the side of the stage and then walk down that barrier and just high five and shake hands with and give hugs to people that were right in the front row. Just I don't know, just like doing that. And I'd done it a few times, and then one time I was getting ready to go, and I walked by Heffe, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I like to go to the front there." I was like, "You want to come along?" And he said, "Should I?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So
Yeah.
I brought him around, and there's lots of stories of Heffe being out of control, wasted at Hookahvilles, which you can hear from people. But this time he happened to be really together, and he was just very normal business Heffe self. So I'm like full, after the encores, Hookahville party mode, and Smiley Ed, and he's just like, walking along with me, and all these people in the front row are like, "Hey," I'm giving hugs, and I'm like, "This is Jeff Spencer, our manager," and he's like, "Hi there, nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you, Jeff Spencer. Hi there."
Yeah.
I thought it was the funniest thing ever. He couldn't like not be, "Hi, Jeff Spencer, manage the band. Hi,
Right.
how are you?" Like at the front row of Hookahville at like 11:30 p.m.
Oh Lord.
So I
That's
love
hilarious.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
I definitely, like I said, I never got to meet him, but I know that he meant a lot to a lot of people. And so, hats off to Jeff's memory, and it's good that they're gonna honor him at this one. Uh,
Mhm.
and then you fast forward. So the next one I got on my list was 2001, and this is, if you Google Ed McGee Hookahville, this is the number one result in Google, and I think it's a lot because I believe this one was with Willie Nelson and Dr. John, and I was not. I think I was. I can't remember if I was at that one or not. I know that one of my very good friends, Ed McLaughlin, was definitely there and tells me all the time about seeing Willie and Dr. John. But what do you remember from 2001? I think that would have been Hookahville 15, somewhere in that area.
Dr. John and Willie, that was the same one.
Yeah, I
I don't
believe. I
even remember
believe.
that.
Yeah,
That's
it
crazy.
said
I
it was
mean,
at Frontier Ranch. And again,
yeah,
this
that
is,
sounds right.
maybe Google's got it wrong. I don't know. I'm sure that people on Hookah
That
Heads will
sounds
correct
right.
us. Yeah.
I, you know, Obviously, excuse me, the first thing I remember is lots of rain and mud. And I remember, hoping, I always hope to get to meet some of these people. And um, I don't really, you're so busy doing things, whether it's getting some song together or driving your parents on a golf cart somewhere. There's always something going on. But I always hope to meet some of these famous people that are there. And so I was really happy to one time go to the VIP food tent where they were feeding us. And I got to sit at a table a few chairs away from Dr. John, and I just said hi to him briefly, but he was eating, but it was cool because it's Hookahville, so everyone's dressed like they dress at Hookahville, pretty free and easy. And I was probably wearing shorts and a tank top as usual.
Yeah.
And there's Dr. John wearing like a purple suit with a hat with the feathers, like total New
Nice.
Orleans awesome. And I was just like, wow, he's like Dr. John always, there he
Yeah.
is. Like it's like 2 p.m. We're eating lunch and he's just total Dr. John, to the T right there, eating and chicken and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was cool. There was sort of a receiving line to meet Willie. I think so many people wanted to meet him that somebody decided just get in this line. He's going to walk from his bus to the stage. He didn't really leave the bus very much, I guess. His bus, he just left it to go play. So we all stood in the line, and he kind of walked by, and I thanked him for being there. And the cool thing about that was that the girl I was dating at the time had made a necklace for him, out of beads. And she said, "I made this for you." And he's like, "Oh, do you mind?" And he leaned over so she could put it on around his neck. And she was shaking
That's
and all
cool.
excited. It was
Yeah.
adorable. And then after she did that, he hugged her and said thanks. And then he took off his bandana that he was wearing and gave it to her.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And so she's just holding this red bandana. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got hundreds of those and he does it all the time, but still, that's freaking cool.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks later, we were visiting my grandmother in Pennsylvania, and who's obviously a big Willie fan. Everybody is, and so my girlfriend at the time brought the bandana and showed it to her, and she's like, "Do you mind?" And she held it. I thought she just wanted to look at it, but she put it on her head. My 80-something-year-old grandmother
Oh,
put
that's
Willie's
cool.
bandana on. So that was awesome. We got a picture of her sitting there with her coffee in her comfy chair wearing Willie's
That's
headband.
amazing. That's
So yeah, so those are a couple of memories I have of that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's and I'm always fascinated by Willie because I mean he still continues to evolve today, with the festival tours that he's doing and everywhere he's playing. Just a fascinating career. And I mean, there's so many Hookahvilles that we could talk to. I have the dates. I know that there was we'll get to the 2015 one in a second. One of my first ones, it was either, I can't remember if it was 2000 or 2001, but it was the Rat Dog year and you got to play with Bobby. And he
Mhm.
came up and jammed with you guys. What was it like meeting Bobby Weir and not just meeting him, but getting to play music with him?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many parts to that for me. It's surreal, too surreal to really absorb properly the first time. I did better with it when he came back in 2000. I could actually enjoy that and kind of experience it and feel like I was there. But in 99, it was just all too crazy. I just don't feel like, you know, I just felt like I couldn't process it or something.
Yeah,
It was awesome, but it was just my feet never got back to the ground. Um, and I think a big reason for that is that I didn't like singing at all when I was younger. I hated singing. I hated my voice, and I always hoped that I loved the idea of being in a band. I wanted to be in a band really bad, and I loved writing music and I loved writing lyrics. So I was like, well, how does this work? And then I realized that the Who, Roger Daltrey doesn't write the lyrics; he just sings them, and Pete Townsend writes them, and he writes the music and sings background vocals. And I'm like, well, that sounds like the perfect job for me. So I always expected or hoped that I'd end up in a situation like that until I was like 17, 18, started listening to the Dead, and anything I listened to in those days, I would just try to figure out how to play on the guitar and maybe try to sing just because I enjoyed doing that sitting at home in the living room. And I found that there weren't a lot of bands that I was listening to that had multiple singers in them. I listened to U2 and the Police and REM, one singer, The Doors, Hendrix. Um, so suddenly I'm listening to this band and loving this band that's got several singers, and each singer's songs had different vibes to them. So I realized pretty quickly that I felt really uncomfortable singing Jerry's songs. Like that kind of crooning. I would love the song, but I just couldn't get my voice to hold out all the years combined. I just
Yeah.
couldn't do that. And then I'm listening to Bob Weir's songs, and I'm like, oh, this is like these short percussive bursts of energy, like, and you'd see him puff up his chest and just exhale like in one quick, like, patience runs out on the junkie, and it just comes right
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
You know, the other one, those just crazy lines just delivered in a quick, thing. And I identified with that, and I really enjoyed singing those songs. And I found that for the first time in my life at 17, 18, I was enjoying singing for the first time ever.
Huh.
And I'd go to these open mics when I was like 18, 19, and the same one where like the hookah guys met, and I would sing some of these Bob Weir songs, and I just really enjoyed it for the first time ever. And then of course I'd started writing songs by then, assuming that someone else would sing them. I remember trying to get Dan Mesner to sing Through Hiker because I didn't want to sing it,
Yeah.
back when we used to play together in between hookah sets. And he's like, no, you sing it fine. I'm like, but I don't want to. And he's like, just keep singing it and shut up. So yeah, I couldn't get anyone else to sing them. So I would just sing my songs by default. But then after getting into the Dead, like I learned to enjoy it. And I think the songs I wrote started, it's not like I would pick a song and be like, oh, I'm going to try to write a song like this. But I think just naturally I started singing more like that style.
Yeah.
And then, and so that affected my playing and singing. And so, fast forward, or, get back to the beginning of the question, like there I am standing at this festival that, uh, you know, and I told this to Bob when I got to meet him. I said, I hated singing, but because of you, I learned to like singing and eventually joined a band that got big enough to invite you to play at this festival. And
That's
it's
awesome.
crazy. And he was like, well, thank you very much, and
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
thank you, so
Yeah.
that was huge. And getting to, play on stage with him was incredible. And one last thing about that, I don't, everyone always hears the short story, but a cool story that doesn't get told enough, I think, is that when I first got there to the site, I ran into Dave Katz, and he was I'm like, do you get to meet Bob yet? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, cool, he was cool, blah blah blah. And he's like, so you want to hear what songs we're doing with him? Because we had learned about 7 or 8 Bob Weir songs, um, hoping that he would want to play one or two of them with us. We just prepared like that much. We wanted to have them down, like Jack Straw and a whole bunch of songs.
Yeah.
And so Dave talked to him, and he was like, he said, West LA Fade Away, which is a Jerry song, and Something Else, which was a Jerry song. And and Dave just said, okay, sure. They were both songs we could probably pull out of our ass, and so Dave tells me this standing in the field behind the stage, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. And he's like, yeah, but whatever. And I'm like, whatever. So then later, when I was talking to Bob, I had a nice little chat with him, and I said, so I heard we're doing West LA and something else. And he goes, yeah, I think that'd be good. I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. Those are great songs. And I just kind of paused, and I was like, we were really working pretty hard on Sugar Magnolia and Throwing Stones and stuff like that. We have them down pretty well, but yeah, those two are great. And he's like, no, let's do those two. That'd be great. And I'm like, yes, and I was like,
Yeah.
I went back
Nice.
to Dave, and I was like, I got him to agree to Throwing Stones and Sugar Mags. And so I just want to hereby take credit for that.
Nice.
That was,
That credit is due, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. And those
And now if
those
anybody wanted to hear us do West LA Fade Away, I'm sorry. My bad. But
I'm glad you guys picked what you did. I'll put links to those videos, and I can't remember who produced them, but they're up on YouTube. And they're some of my favorites to watch from Hookahville because I mean, how cool, just to see Bobby play with you guys, and yeah, that was amazing. And it's an interesting segue into the Dead. So you fast forward to 2015, and this is Hookahville 44. Again, I'm not good at Roman numerals, and some of that's up on the archives, but this was at Frontier Ranch. And so this was the 50th anniversary of the Dead. And I remember that uh, the guys played a Dead set. You came up at the end, and I believe did was it Sugar Magnolia or what was it? What was
yeah,
the song that? Yeah, Sugar
Sugar
Magnolia
Magnolia.
with him. So
Mhm.
that was an interesting connection. But I actually in my randomly in archives that I had like in Dropbox, I found a cell phone video of you and Dave doing a performance, and it was past the cider, and it was the first time that you guys had played together in a number of years, or at least as
Mhm.
far as we knew. Talk a little bit about that first reunion, and coming back and doing that set.
It's my home. We sit round the bonfire in a circle so strong, and we'll still be singing. And come the night, come the dawn. I'm down in Athens again, and I'm out on the porch with Matt's mandolin, but it's all in my mind. I'd like to go back, it's been a long time, but I think it's better we stay. Those are songs that we've already played. We'll keep our memories, yours gold, and let the stories always be told. Yeah, let the stories always be told. The highs, that's a long verse. Don't make you nervous. Okay. We used to climb up that tower, and you could see for miles. We'd stay there for hours, and we could climb it again. The view hasn't changed, but it won't be the same. You know, I think it's better we stay, 'cause those are songs that we've already played. We'll keep our memories, yours gold, and let the stories always be told. Yeah, let the stories always be told.
Yeah, it was very heavy, to be back with those guys. I was super nervous. I had super nervous energy, because I felt like, for a long time after I left the band, there was not good vibes between us, and I honestly was doing my best to just be an open doorway. At all the One Under shows, there would be some people in the crowd that were like making comparisons, and in either direction, and I made this speech so many times it was driving me crazy. Like, music shouldn't be a competition. If you want to go see them on New Year's Eve, great, have a good time. If you want to see us, great, but let's not, like, we don't need to discuss what band is better, or it doesn't matter. And anybody that's saying anybody's better than Sweeney is kind of an idiot, unless they are, which, show me that person.
Right.
But you know people that would compare the guitarists and stuff. Cello's incredible. He has a whole different style, and he writes songs which Sweeney doesn't really do. So I mean, it's dumb to compare. So I but think I did my best to try to be like, yeah, I left the band and they're pissed about that, and I get that. And there's things that could have been done better, sure. But I just tried to, stay in my lane, and I don't blame them for being upset. I was disappointed. I hoped we could at least, be, civil, but it took a while. So to back to the point, to have them reach out and ask me to play there, 10 years later, I was really grateful. And but also nervous because this will be the first time, this is the first getting together that we had. And I didn't know how much they really were feeling it. They might have just been pushed into it by promoter or, whatever. And maybe some of them were into it and some of them weren't. It's hard to say. I'd had some conversations with Sweeney over the years. So I knew we had to reestablish something. We'd drink beer together when I was in town and hang out. But I never really saw Dave. I never really saw the other guys. And so, first I got out there early and we had rehearsal and it went great. So I think that dispelled a lot of the nerves and this, drinking beer in Nate's glass studio, practicing, rehearsing, joking around. It felt like, we just kind of fell right back into the sort of whatever form of camaraderie we had back then sort of revived, and everybody was being nice to me, and I was, everything was fine. But yeah, a lot of nerves, and I didn't know that I was going to be playing with them that Grateful Dead night. That was kind of thrown together. I think what happened was, if I remember correctly, at the rehearsal, which was on like a Monday or Tuesday prior to the Hookahville, we went over all my songs, and then they were scheduled to continue rehearsing with Mullins, but he hadn't showed up, and they couldn't get in touch with him, and they wanted, and they were like, well, let's just go over it, and they were, gonna play Sugar Magnolia with them, and so they were like, let's just go over it so we feel like we know it, even though he's not here. And then I think Sarge or somebody was like, well, maybe Ed can sing it. He knows a lot of Dead tunes. And somebody was just, I'm like packing up my shit right over there, and
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And they're like, do you know Sugar Magnolia? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I like turned my amp back on, and I know the song, so I just sang it. And I got to admit, like, part of me was like, well, I wouldn't mind singing this with the guys if,
Right.
John, if John's gonna pull a no-show, I'll just like state my case. I'm here, I'm available. Um, and so I just, I did my best to sing it well in that rehearsal space. And I remember at the end seeing Sarge kind of look over at Dave and just be like, I mean, that's always an option, so
Yeah.
so I figured that was that. And then, but sure enough, at the, the day of the show, they were like, we'd like you to do that with us for the encore if you want. And I was like, what about John? And I'm like, he doesn't want to do it. He says that song's cheesy. And I'm like, Sugar Magnolia? I
Right.
mean,
That's yeah.
freaking legendary, Grateful, whatever. Maybe
Yeah.
I hate that cheesy thing that people say about Bob. It's like, whatever. So yeah, so that's kind of how that ended up happening. Was that the
No,
question? Did
that's
I go into
totally
too?
no, it is totally so like yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about that because I remember so that Hookahville in particular, I remember it was hot. I was there with two friends who I've been going to Hookahvilles with for 20 plus years. And it was a super hot weekend. And you came out and did the kind of preset with Dave, right? And it was you guys, you opened up with Pass the Cider, Pass the Run. And I just happened to pull my cell phone up and take a video. And I remember standing there because I got choked up as I was shooting the video, and I could hear everybody else around me getting choked up because that was the first time we had seen you guys play in so
Mhm.
long. And then and the cloud, there were clouds like hanging from the inside of Frontier Ranch. God rest its soul, it's no longer there,
Mhm.
but in the pavilion. And during the second verse, you stopped and you were like, I totally forgot the words. And everybody started cheering and going nuts, right? And it was just this moment where it was like, everything's gonna be okay, right? Like, and I hate to say that, but like I was one of the people that when you left the band, It took me a while, and I've come to love all versions of acoustic hookah, but that was a big blow for me personally, and it took me a while to get my head around that, because that was the hookah I grew up with, right? And it still kind of makes my skin tingle when I think about it. But I felt like that Hookahville specifically was this major turning point where everybody just went, you know what, everything's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all good. And fast forward, then you came back multiple times over the year. I think one of the things I remember, and maybe it was a couple years ago. Again, the dates run together, but seeing you and Sarge up on stage playing together, and you guys did some stuff together. Um, what was that like? Because I know for the crowd, it was really interesting, right? Like and seeing that, but it was this mixing of eras. So talk a little bit about your relationship with Sarge and getting to play with him as a musician.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarge is a great guy. We have a great relationship. I've known him since, before this all happened when I was in hookah and he was playing with what a river band or, can't remember the name. Feels stupid that I can't remember that right now, but Burning River Band.
Maybe. Yeah, I'll have to
Is
look
any
it
of
up.
this? I'm sorry. I apologize, Sarge, and the rest of the crew. But yeah, so I think we had done some gigs with them, and I'd seen him play, and so I've known him, for a long time. He's always been just the nice guy that you know him as. He's always nice to me as well. Um, Super helpful, super friendly, and all the subsequent trips I made to Hookahvilles, he's loaned me gear, he's given me advice on gear. We have a great relationship talking about, gear and guitars and amps and pedals and he's been, I have equipment in my acoustic and electric rig right now that are both because of conversations I've had with him. And then yeah, musically, he's really great to work with. He does the homework. He cares about the songs in the same way I do. He wants when he's playing my songs, he wants to know that how they go, even if he's not going to be playing that part, just so he can understand what I'm doing and not, hit some notes that don't go along. We have great talks about the songs and we joke, so yeah, I mean, it's always fun playing with Sarge. I
Yeah.
enjoy that.
And it's been a lot of fun seeing you guys play together. And there's been more than a few times in the past couple of years, not even at Hookahvilles, but at other shows where, I'll put my head down, close my eyes, and I'm just listening, and a guitar solo starts, and I immediately get up and I look over towards Sweeney, and I realize Sweeney's still playing rhythm. And then I look over at Sarge, and he's the one soloing, and I'm going, holy hell, where did that come
Yeah.
from? Right?
Yeah. He
Like,
can rip.
yeah,
He
it's
can
been
rip.
really fun to see him develop and just kind of come into his own over the years. And
Hmm.
so hat tip Sarge, man. Great
Yeah,
work.
for sure.
Um, so yeah, we're at Hookahville 60 this year, Roost on the River in Newark, Ohio. And that's a new venue for Hookahville. Have you been there yet? Have you had a chance to visit that venue yet?
I have not.
Okay.
And I watched the video that you made, and it was great. Cool video.
Thanks,
Well
man.
done.
Appreciate it.
And I loved how it synced up with the Hookahville song. And like right when they said something about build the stage, you showed the stage. It was perfectly synced up. That was
Good
great.
luck.
And all the aerial shots too gave you a good feel for what it's like around there. And it looks like a great venue. I'm psyched to be there.
Yeah.
I've heard good things.
So you're doing solo set, and then you're going to play the 2.0 era set. Are you willing to share? Like, I know that when you do shows, you prepare like crazy, right? Like we've talked about that in the past, where you really kind of put in the time and the effort to make sure that you're very prepared. Are you able to share anything that you're working on, or do you have any ideas for what the solo set or what you guys are going to play?
I'm not going to prepare this time. I'm going to go in cold. I'm not even going to have calluses,
Okay.
and we're just going to see how it goes. Yeah, no, no. I should say too that I enjoy the preparing. What is preparing? It's sitting around playing guitar, playing songs that I enjoy. So I don't want to get too many pats on the back for all the preparing, but I do probably more preparing in bands I've been in than other bandmates probably do. I love to get out there and just have it all be about feel. I don't want to remember. I don't want to be thinking about what's next. I want to just instinctively know it. I don't want to have to try to recall lyrics. I just want them to come, So I do like to prepare to that, but it doesn't always work. I mean, it's like the older I get, the more faulty the uploading and downloading is. But um, but to get to a certain point where I'm like, I'm feeling comfortable so that when I'm on stage with the guys, I can just let loose and have it all be energy, not thinking, just emotion. And so yeah, what can I share with you? Yeah, there's some songs that I'm really excited about that we've been discussing. There's one in particular that we haven't played yet since I've been rejoining them. There's um, from my catalog of songs, there's still I don't know, a few handfuls that we haven't revisited, and so at least one that I'm aware of we're doing, and I'm super excited about it. Um, but I don't want to give away too much. But it's
That's
been
fair.
really fun re-listening to old versions and getting psyched and going, oh yeah, this, I forgot about certain parts of it and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And and then there's some bangers in there that the band requested we do. It's kind of neat. It makes me feel good when I hear like, oh, Paige wants to do this song and Sweeney wants to do this song. And I'm like, Sweeney made a request? That's cool.
Nice.
Like
Nice.
I thought he pretty much just begrudgingly did whatever we made him do. But it's funny how he starts with that vibe, but then on stage he's like the one lifting it to the
Right.
stratosphere. So yeah, so I don't, yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but super stoked.
People are going to have a lot to look forward to, and I like the
Mhm.
mystery around it too. Just knowing that there's going to be a few, new ones that haven't been done, and there's going to be some bangers in there.
Mhm.
Hookahville, and again, I say this a lot on this podcast. In fact, I can imagine that the people who aren't from Ohio probably think I'm an idiot and should shut up the fuck up about Hookahville. But Hookahville is a very special place and a very special community. And I'll be transparent. I've recently been going through shit. Everybody goes through shit, right? And it's funny that I turned to the Hookah Heads group on Facebook just to reconnect with people, and that's been huge, right? For just helping me get through shit. What is it for you that makes Hookahville or the community around Hookahville so special? What is it? What do you think it is that creates that vibe?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. And there's a couple different levels that I see in the answer to that. And one is just that the basic 50 steps back, just looking in from way outside. Music is important. Music is significant because uh, it brings people together. And it's cliche to say, but you've heard it said a zillion times because it's true.
Yeah.
Um, when people are just locked into the same rhythm together, and you've also heard people to say this, but like that goes back to, people playing drums around a fire, thousands of years ago. People locked into the same rhythm is certainly what the world needs. And I've often told people who are artists or musicians, like, recent times can stress people out, the political craziness going on. People get stressed, and I'm like, this is exactly the time that we need artists and musicians to do their thing. The world needs you now. And so music just in general is important for those reasons that we all know, but it's, putting it into words sort of cheapens it. It's so heavy and spiritual, that togetherness thing, that rhythm and that dancing together, being a part of it together, which includes the band and everybody that's there, whether they're in the crowd at the front of the back or they're working in a hot dog stand, everyone within earshot. It's like literally everyone's involved. Um, and then, so that's kind of one level to me. Then why Hookahville in particular? And I've been thinking about that. I think one thing Hookahville, well, there's two sides to this for me. One is there's a legitimacy to it. There's a honesty to this festival that I don't think a lot of other festivals can claim. This festival started because Dave and Heffe were like, we need to raise money to buy a water pump or dig a well or something on their property.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know how they got the rest of the band to agree to that. Like, we're going to have a party and use most of the funds to build a well, and you can have I mean, weren't they like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's my well? Where, you
Right.
know,
Right.
but whatever, regardless of how they did that deal. Um, what an honest beginning. Like, let's just throw a party at this property. We've got the space, people can camp in the woods, it'll be great. Um, and it worked really well that more people came than they expected. So what do they do? That, well, let's do this again next year on a, you know, some other property that's a little bigger. And why did they do that? Because the first one was fun.
Right.
You know, no one's like, no one's trying to like buy a sports car. And all the years I was in the band, you know, every Sweeney had an old truck, you know, like I had an old piece of shit that I bought from my roommate for a month's rent. She was getting rid of it. She's like, just take it. And I pay rent this week, here, this month, you know. So like nobody's like cashing it, you know, it's like it was fun. And it was like all of the people we love came, family, friends, fans. And then, you know, and I went to those, all the Hookahvilles before I joined the band. So I'm saying this from the crowd perspective. Um, and there's an honesty and legitimacy, I think, from that. They kept, you know, in the second one, they invited a few regional bands or whatever, and they recognized that that made it a little bigger and gave it some flavor and color. Um, you know, and so it grew in like an organic, natural way, always trying to hold on to those tenets of no hassles, no bad attitudes, take care of your neighbor, you know. Um, whereas, you know, you got big cities, St. Louis, you know, Milwaukee, throwing these huge festivals where they hire huge national acts, thousands of people there, corporate sponsors, and there isn't any kind of tenet. There's no, you know, it's just like, let's cash in. It'll be fun. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with this,
Yeah.
but it's a different thing. So the honesty, and that brings me to the second half of the Hookahville, why Hookahville amongst the all the million other festivals. Um, it's it's a sweet spot. I don't think it outgrew itself. I think, you know, you hear about like Bonnaroo and the one
Yeah.
out west, can't think of the name right now. The one at the polo fields there in California.
Oh,
Why is it not coming to my brain?
not Burning Man, not
No,
no.
but you can almost include Burning Man because I heard it got too big and out of control. So like some of these festivals, they get popular, too popular, and then they sort of lack control. And some of that, the vibe that you want, the that feeling of inclusion where everybody inside those fences is there for the same reason, it goes away, you know. You get that with the fish festivals, I think. I love the fish festivals because everyone feels like they're there for the same reason. And I don't have any problem with it. It's a fish thing, but they don't have other bands.
Yeah.
So you don't have that variety going on. You don't, so that I almost consider that a different category, the fish thing. So of festivals like Hookahville, where you have multiple bands, multiple days, multiple stages, it's a sweet spot of size and I think that makes it so you really get that thing that you talked about earlier about OJ and his festival. It's like that. You know,
Yeah.
everyone seems to care about each other. If someone's being a, you know, dick or doing something wrong, they get, you know, it gets dealt with, you know. Whereas if you're at Bonnaroo, like, I mean, I guess you could try to alert somebody, but what do you got to walk a mile to find somebody and say, hey, this guy, you know, like how's, I
Right.
don't know, you
Yeah.
might just have to put up with it because it's just too big. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't speak for Bonnaroo, but you know what I mean? I think there's a
Yeah.
sweet spot there. So the combination of the size, that vibe that you get of togetherness, kindness, kinship. You know, I think the word kindness, it comes from the word kin for family. It's how you treat your own. That kind of kindness is, I think, unique to Hookahville. I've been to a million festivals playing in the band, and there were a lot of great ones, but I of course I'm biased, but I always felt like our festival, I say our back when I was in the band, had the best kinship.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to hear you say our festival because if you got on the Fuka Heads Facebook group and you asked, you know, everybody there would say this is our festival, right? Because I think they feel
Mhm.
like it's theirs too, right?
Yep.
Like, and the band allows that, right?
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, it is, I've seen people get married at Hookahville. I've seen, there are kids who grew up at Hookahvilles that are now playing in bands, right? And I
Mhm.
remember, Austin is one of those with, Austin Johnson, right? Like
Mhm.
he was when I was young, he was that kid running around the festival. Now he's a musician playing
He's
his
a
own thing,
badass
right? He's a
too. Yeah.
badass dude, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so is Sid. I think they're going
Mm.
big
Yeah,
places,
they're
but
incredible.
so many things have come out of Hookahville over the year, and now we're going to the 60th edition of it, and that in
Amazing.
itself is amazing, right?
It
Because
is.
it's hard to make a music festival work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, man, I want to leave it at that. I think it's a brilliant way to end things, but I sure am appreciative that you got on and were able to share so many cool stories, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking
Thanks
forward to seeing you
for
play.
inviting me here. I love talking about music and Hookahville and the old stories.
Yeah, man. And I know I speak for everybody. We're super excited to see both the solo set and to see you join the guys, and we'll see you in June.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, man.
Hey, before we're done,
Yeah, yeah.
you had said I could do some shout outs. Can I do
Oh,
some
yeah, yeah,
shout
yeah.
outs?
I
Is
forgot
that all
about
right?
that. Shout outs.
Because
Yeah,
I thought about that too. And I just wanted, because I thought it was cool of you to include,
yeah,
some shout outs. So Jeff Spencer was at the top of the list. We already talked about him, but I
yeah.
wanted to drink a glass to him. And speaking of people we lost, Jeff Parker
Okay.
was a great friend and fan who the Toledo area, and a group of friends called the Scribblers who gave me countless nights of entertainment and party favors. So I'm raising a glass to Jeff Parker as well, and his brother who hosted us at his great bar that he started with Jeff in Toledo, Golden Road. My buddy Vern Peltema, who we lost recently, he's kept a local color together for a million years, and that's where our Dave started. And well, Dave started in LA, of course, with Haven, but in
Yeah,
Columbus, he was playing with local color for a few years, and then I did. Um, so I love Vern, miss Vern, raising a glass to him. Um, and then my buddy Kerry Romanoff, who I who used to manage the band in the early days, and I used to go to Dead shows with him and hang out with him at all the hookah shows in the early days. He's the one I mentioned and pass the cider, pass the rum. I miss him. He lives down in Atlanta, but I always love seeing him. And I wanted a special thanks to Bobby Schindler, because he was, all these questions about me getting back with hookah and stuff. I think he had a kind of instrumental role in reacquainting me with hookah. Like the year before, maybe a couple years before, leading up to 2015, he had invited me to Ohio from where I was living in Colorado to do shows with him and his band. And he would like organize little mini tours. And I think I hadn't been in Ohio for a few years and seemed like I was just gone. And he sort of reintroduced the idea of Ed and Ed songs back into Ohio.
yeah,
And I was very grateful for that. And I really think, who knows, but I can't help but think that the guys in hookah saw me back around and saw that people were coming out to see the shows, and somebody was like, yeah, maybe it's time.
yeah,
So I'm very grateful to Bobby Schindler for reintroducing me into the scene. um and finally, I'd like to mention John and Brahman. I don't know what's up with those guys now. I don't think they're playing
God,
together,
yeah. I
but
remember John
I
Brahman.
think they're all doing different things. But toward the end of my time in Columbus, right before I moved to Colorado, they kind of gave me a kick in the ass by inviting me to sit in with them for Justin's birthday and sang Godspeed with them. And
Yeah,
I fell in love with their band just through the process of hanging out with them, and hanging out with Justin and Casey and the rest of the fellas. And I learned a bunch of their songs because I love them, and they would have me sit in, and they ended up having me write lyrics for two or three of their songs.
yeah,
And so I miss those guys, but they were huge hookah heads. And you talk about people I met in the scene. They were some of them, and they were great guys. So I hope they're all doing well with their music.
yeah,
And finally, I just wanted to thank the Together and Everywhere crew. I haven't done the live streams in quite a while. I've been taking a break intentionally because I don't want to do it again until I have new songs to play, and I'm still working on that,
yeah,
among other things. I got equipment changes as well. But I love the Together and Everywhere experiences on the live streams for the 2-3 years that we did it. And
yeah.
And I miss all of those people, miss all of you. And hopefully I'll see you at Hookahville. And someday I'll get back to live streaming. And
Yeah.
those are my shout outs.
I'm
I'd like to
looking
thank the Academy. I'd like to thank my parents.
right. I'm looking forward to the relaunch of Together and Everywhere. I know that shit straight got me through a lot of the pandemic, and I have a lot of friends that it did too. That was, yeah, we looked forward to the Thursday nights. It was just such a nice break from everything that was going on. So hopefully that comes back soon.
Someday.
Yeah.
Someday.
Well, thank you for doing this, and again, shouts to everybody you mentioned too. All part of the Hookah family, you know, and so we're glad to have you, and we're glad to see you in June.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
And that's all the time we have for this week, neighbors. That was absolutely one of the most fun interviews and cool episodes that I've gotten to do since I started this podcast. So thanks to Ed McGee for giving me an hour-long talk, which was just awesome, dude. Make sure you catch Ed's solo set and his set with Hookah 2.0. That's happening June 5th through the 7th at Roost on the River Music Center in Newark, Ohio. You can get those tickets and see the full lineup at hookahville.com. And if you go, come say hello. I'm going to have a special Hookah 60 commemorative poker chip for you. I like to give these out at festivals, and they're a lot of fun. There are going to be links to all the videos you saw in the B-roll. So if you're not watching the show on YouTube, make sure to go to YouTube, cast it up on your TV tonight. You should be able to watch that as well. But there's a lot of great videos from Hookah Past that you're going to check those out, and those links are going to be in the show notes. And come back on Friday 4/11, so Friday, April 11th. That's going to be an interview with Dave Katz, who I think is going to be very interesting, and I know a lot of you are going to want to hear from Dave as well. I do need to make a quick correction. So when I did the flyover video, the preview of Roost on the River, I totally screwed up Devin's name. It's not Devin, it's Devon. Devon White is the owner of Roost on the River. And also that venue has actually been around since 2018. I was not aware that it had been around. It looks like there's a lot of development going on, so I made that mistake, and I do want to apologize to Devon for that. He was totally cool about it, but still, I got to get this shit right. I got to get better at that. But in regards to Hookahville, I think everybody's super excited to be out at Roost on the River and have the first Hookahville that's been in that venue coming up in just a few months. So we're super excited. In that vein, you can get a ticket package for Hookahville. Our friends Jim Garibaldi at JSG Live has hooked us up with 2 complimentary 3-day general admission passes, and that includes primitive car camping as well. And that package is valued at $475. So if you want to win that, you're going to want to head over to musicfestivalspodcast.com. You're going to look at the top where there's a link that says win festival tickets. Pretty easy. Click on that link, and that will get you to the page where you can enter to win the Hookahville tickets along with a few other festivals. So again, we've got Hookahville happening at Roost on the River. There's the Trifesta package, which includes Dark Star Jubilee, All Good Now, and 4848, and that's from our friends at All Good Presents. You can get tickets to the upcoming Sunshine Get Down, which is actually happening in just a few weeks, and that's April 10th through the 12th at the Florida Sand Music Ranch in Brooksville, Florida. There's also tickets available for Cave Jam. Some of these drawings are going to close very soon, so make sure you get there. But Cave Jam is happening May 24th through the 25th at the Caverns in Pelham, Tennessee. Great place to go. And then finally, Incarceration Music and Tattoo Festival, which is happening July 18th through the 20th, and that is at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield for all you Ohio folks that want to go check out a metal and tattoo festival. When you enter, you're also going to be subscribed to the neighborhood newsletter. So that's our weekly email newsletter. You're going to get the episode, and you're also going to get access to deals and discounts from a lot of the partners we work with. And that includes Outdoorsy.com, Indicum Scooters, Melted Mind Designs for great tie-dyes, Cast Magic, Cat Cup, Opus Clip. These are all tools that I use to produce the show and videos. And then Hoem, and the Hoem iSteady M7 gimbal, which is absolutely something that you're going to want to try out if you are using your cell phone to record concert videos. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that. But thanks again for tuning in. I really, really appreciate all of you that do. There's thousands of you there that are apparently as much into music festivals as I am. And if that's you, please take a moment to go wherever you're listening or watching and rate the show, or just leave a comment. Let me know that you're out there. Suggestions, questions, other videos I should have featured. I'm open to all of that. But that's all I got for you this week, folks. As always, I am Neighbor Nate, and I hope to be your neighbor at a festival very, very soon. Hopefully it'll be Hookahville 60.